Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads. My reading plan for this week was to, over the weekend, complete Indivisible by Joel Richard Paul. And then over the course of the work week, get a start on The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. Unfortunately, my plans failed, and I have a double bail this week. So let's start with these two bails. Starting with the book that I'd hoped to finish over the course of the weekend, Indivisible, Daniel Webster and the Birth of American Nationalism by Joel Richard Paul. So this is a history of the United States in the first half of the 19th century, from about the War of 1812, so 1812 through 1851 and the death of Daniel Webster. The thesis is that Daniel Webster was instrumental in creating a sense of nationalism on the part of American citizens or citizens of the United States. So rather than, as in earlier in America's history, Americans thought of themselves rather as New Yorkers or Virginians or Georgians or Pennsylvanians and what have you, they began to think of themselves as Americans. I mentioned last week that I was coming to regret my choice of reading this book. At the time, I had the option of either reading this or reading some manga. And I decided to go with this since I wouldn't be able to read this when I wanted to, which would have been the last days of July because I'm moving. And this book would be boxed up somewhere, so I couldn't find it. Well, I probably would know where it was, but it might be a pain in the rear end to get to, so I decided to go ahead and read it early, and that was a mistake. For 3 reasons. Number one, as I mentioned last week in last weekly reads, I caught a number of mistakes in this book that Paul should have caught, that his editor should have caught. Those errors are, there's a passage in a chapter covering the Monroe presidency that John C. Calhoun, who was Secretary of War, and the Secretary of the Treasury, who was named Crawford, their roles are reversed. Calhoun is referred to as the Treasury Secretary and Crawford as the Secretary of War. And also there was a British Foreign Secretary who would eventually become Prime Minister, who is referred to as Prime Minister rather than what his appropriate title at this point should have been, which was Foreign Secretary. So that annoyed me. And later in the book, there's a similar, not quite that level, well, of a mess up, but there's a bit of poor writing, I guess, later in the book where it's not entirely clear where pieces of legislation are coming from. There's a lot of ambiguity, it's difficult to tell whether something's happening during the Adams administration or the Jackson administration. And it was annoying. It's just so annoying. My second issue is that the book really doesn't touch too much on the thesis, doesn't focus on the thesis. This is the history of the United States in the first half of the 19th century that occasionally mentions the thesis of how exactly citizens of the United States began to think of themselves more as citizens of the United States rather than of their individual states. but that mention it's not really, you would think with a thesis like that would be the main focus, and it's not. It's just really a general history of the United States. And my third issue, and what really finally drove me away from this book, was Andrew Jackson, who, reading those chapters, I bailed during them, but what I read of them, they were painful, just painful to read. I just loathe Jackson so much. And while, yes, Paul is very, very critical of him, it's still, those were painful chapters to read. And I just couldn't take it anymore, so I bailed. And very likely will not be giving Indivisible a bail redemption. I mean, it was so bad that the poetry collection I read afterwards took longer than normal to click with me. It was so bad. But before we get to the poetry collection, let's get to The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. Excuse me. This is a classic of American literature. It is a candidate for the Great American Novel. And I don't quite know what to make of it. So, The Grapes of Wrath is about a family of Oklahoma tenant farmers, the Jodes, whose land is foreclosed on by the bank. And the Jodes decide to leave Oklahoma and migrate to California, where they have been told that agricultural jobs are plentiful and highly paid, or better paid. So the Jodes head off to California and discover that no, conditions in California are just as bad, if not worse, because they are now ruthlessly exploited by what would eventually become corporate agriculture. And the family falls apart. Now, I had my first, the first time I bought a copy of The Grapes of Wrath, I was 16, and I think I wasn't too much older when I attempted to read it for the first time and bailed on it in the Turtle chapter. So, while the main narrative is about the Jodes, every other chapter, although sometimes 2 chapters in a row, Steinbeck will go on a tangent where he'll describe something or sort of narrate in the macro. And one of these chapters is about a turtle walking down a road. And yeah, what's the purpose of this chapter except for symbolism that's ham-fisted? And then I came back to the book several years later in college, and I'm pretty sure I finished it. And then I forgot about it. And I got rid of my copy, and I was okay with that. I have an unsettled relationship with the books that I consider, or the works of literature that I call canonical and modern fiction and contemporary fiction. So I was okay with it. But I recently have gotten into a desire to reread or bail redeem Nobel Prize winning works. And John Steinbeck, is the winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature, and I have previously read this, so this book works, or counted. So I picked it up and decided this month to try to read it for my for a little project I have in which I read American literature in the course of July. And I managed to power through several days of The Grapes of Wrath. I did not enjoy it. Those sort of not Joe chapters have no, I mean, they're extraneous, they're tangential. They could easily be cut and nothing would be missed. And whatever importance they have, they could have been incorporated into the Jodes' narrative. And House of it's ham-fisted, I think. The themes are ham-fisted. It's just, I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. And I bailed on it. So after I bailed on Indivisible, I reread First Nights by Niall Campbell. And I enjoyed this collection. It's one of my favorite collections, and it took me quite a while to get into it. I was so annoyed with Indivisible. So on Sunday, I read 6 volumes of manga, and that really pleased me. And in fact, all of the manga I read this week, because I did read 2 more volumes of manga after I bailed on The Grapes of Wrath. This is all that I read, manga-wise. I wish I had read more, but oh well. So, first up are 3 volumes of Twin Star Exorcists by Yoshiaki Sukeno, volumes 4, 5, and 6. So, Twin Star Exorcists is set in contemporary Japan. It's about 2 young exorcists, Rokuro and Benio. Rokuro was a prodigy exorcist until a tragedy happened and he wanted out, even though he was still cared for by the exorcist chapter that took him in. Benio is also a prodigy exorcist, although with a desire to avenge herself on the monster Kigare that killed her parents. Rokuro and Benio are informed by their superiors that they are the Twin Star Exorcists. They are fated to marry and produce a super exorcist who it is hoped will be able to end the war between exorcists and the Kigare, demons formed from negative emotions. Neither Rokuro nor Benio are particularly thrilled about this. However, as they are forced to live together and interact with each other, and as Rokuro begins to desire to become an exorcist again, they begin to gradually fall for each other. Although Benio realizes that she's in love with Rokuro much sooner than Rokuro realizes that he's in love with Benio. So these 3 volumes introduces the first time skip in the series. So at the end of volume 3, it's revealed that there was another survivor of the massacre, the tragedy that befell Rokuro. And this other survivor is revealed to be to have instigated it, and he desires Rokuro to join him because Rokuro was a successful test of this villain's plan. Rokuro and Benio decide to take the fight to him and spend quite a chunk of these 3 volumes fighting him. The fight ends up in a stalemate, and Rokuro and Benio are confronted by their superiors, and they come to an arrangement that if Rokuro and Benio improve enough over the succeeding 2 years, that they will be allowed to travel to an island nation controlled by the Exorcists in order to more fully take the fight to the Kagare and to this villain. And I had a blast with these volumes. It was really, really fun. So that's fighting. Because I really love these volumes. I'm really into Twin Star Exorcists. I also read 3 volumes of YuYu Hakusho by Yoshihiro Togashi, volumes 7, 8, and 9. So, YuYu Hakusho is about a young teenage delinquent named Yusuke Urameshi, who is killed while rescuing a young boy. Yusuke was not supposed to die and is given a chance to come back to life. And once he does, he is appointed spirit detective with the job of maintaining proper relationships between the living and the dead in Tokyo. Yusuke is joined by a classmate named Kurabara, as well as 2 demons, Hiei and Kurama. After an encounter with the Toguro brothers, Yusuke and Kurabara are invited to join a tournament, the Dark Tournament. And so Yusuke, Kurabara, Hiei, and Kurama travel to this mysterious island to participate in this tournament, in which they are fighting against demons in life and death battles. So these volumes sort of basically follow on with the tournament in the sort of the first round and into the second round. And one of the things about this tournament is that it is very, very corrupt and fixed. Because in the second round, Team Urameshi manages to defeat their first round of opponents and are immediately forced to fight in a second match. And they are successful in both. And then the volumes conclude with the third round. But I really enjoyed these volumes. They were really fantastic. Especially like the sort of changes in Yusuke's character. I really like the characterization of Kurabara. There's a moment in these volumes where he has one amazing moment. It is just, when I read that, I was giddy. And I also really enjoy the Hiei and Kurama. They are both awesome and have their awesome moments. So. And I also quite like how several of their opponents become friendly after their matches. Okay. Oh yeah, so it was really fun. And I also ended the reading week with 2 volumes of manga. Dan Volume 8 by Yukinobu Tatsu, and Snowball of Earth Volume 2 by Yuhiro Sujitsugu. So Dan is a wild and crazy series set in contemporary Japan about 2 teenagers, Momo and Ken, who goes by the nickname Okuran. Momo believes in ghosts, but she does not believe in aliens. Okuran believes in aliens. He does not believe in ghosts. So they meet and talk, and they decide to make a bet. Momo will go to a place reputedly visited by aliens, and Okuran will go to a place reputedly haunted. And they discover that both ghosts and aliens exist, and their encounters with aliens and ghosts strange them, empower them. Momo's latent psychic abilities are activated, and she becomes a powerful telekinetic. Okuran is possessed by an evil ghost named Turbo Granny, who is later partially exorcised. Her personality is exorcised, but Okuran maintains her powers. And the two go on wild and crazy adventures, dealing with both ghosts and aliens on a regular basis, and building a friendship group with several similar people who are equally empowered. And one of their goals in these adventures is to find Okuran's missing genitals, because Turbo Granny has a weird interest in male genitals, and she ended up stealing Okuran's when she possessed him. Although he's gotten a few of them back, but he's still missing one. And so this volume continues on the storyline that started in the 7th volume, in which Okuran and another member of this weird friendship group go to a school that is haunted by spirits that have inhabited and taken the likenesses of portraits of famous composers. And so Okuran and I constantly am blanking on her name. Aira have to fight them, and in doing so, they begin to train their abilities much better. And so after this, both Okuran and Aira are better suited to fighting. And Okuran takes this newfound skill and confidence to settle the problem of Gigi, who is possessed by a ghost called the Evil Eye. That is just a child. And so Okuran's solution is that he and the Evil Eye will fight. And basically, until the Evil Eye can defeat Okuran, that the Evil Eye can only fight Okuran. And so that solution seems to work. Although, in hindsight, maybe some caveats could have been added so that the Evil Eye could help in fighting other ghosts and alien invasion. Because once the final missing genital of Okuran is found, it is in the possession of a kaiju. And so the volume ends with Momo and Okuran and the rest of the gang having to fight a kaiju, which is approaching Momo's house, which has just recently been rebuilt after being destroyed by Evil Eye possessed Gigi. So let's look at some pictures because I love the artwork in this series. Yukinobu Tatsu is just an amazing artist. Just amazing artwork. And so this leads me to Snowball Earth Volume 2 by Yuhiro Sugitsugu. So Snowball Earth is about a young man named Tetsuo who was a pilot for mecha named Yukio, which basically translates as like snow, who were part of a defense force dedicated to fighting an invasion of kaiju from space. So Tetsuo and Yukio travel into space for a space battle and are defeated. The fleet from Earth is defeated, and Yukio is destroyed, and Tetsuo is trapped in an escape pod in suspended animation for 10 years, returning to Earth as 10 years later. And he discovers that Earth has been covered in a permanent winter. And there are few survivors. And Tetsuo encounters a group of survivors and helps them defeat a kaiju and is accepted into their community. However, survivors of this defense force that he was a part of have also survived and have become rather cultish, rather weird and insane. And they're up to no good. And so the volume ends with this group beginning to launch an attack on the community that has taken Tetsuo in. And Tetsuo is trying to prevent this. And one thing that's happened in the intervening 10 years since the kaiju successfully invaded Earth and Earth has become a snowball is that some humans have developed superhuman abilities and connection with the kaiju. And so that remains to be explored. And I really enjoyed this volume. It was quite fun. I think the members of the ERDA, they're a little bit too extra. I mean, they're a bit too silly. Although that could be the kaiju are driving them insane. But anywho, so let's look at some pictures. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next volume of Snowball Earth. Anywho, so that leads me to what I will be reading this coming reading week. Now, I'm going to try to take it a bit easy because, again, I'm in the process of packing for a move. And so I'm going to give myself a bit more time to work on that over the course of the reading week. So over the weekend, I'm going to be reading at least 4 slam volumes of poetry. I'll be reading for the first time Come Take a Gentle Stab, selected poems by Salim Barakat, translated by Huda J. Fakhreddine and Jayson Iwen, and Portal by Tracy Fuad. I recently picked them up and have not gotten around to them yet. And I will be rereading selected poems of Giovanni Pascoli, translated by Taije Silverman and Marina Della Putta Johnston. And brief homage to Pluto and other poems by Fabio Pusterla, selected and translated by Schutt. And over the course of the work week, I will be finishing Naruto by Masashi Kishimoto, starting with volume 58. And I've got 15 volumes to go, so I will be ending with volume 72. So that's my reading plans. So, as I mentioned earlier today, I'm going to be suspending the 2024 library tour. I did finish the history part of the tour, but I still have the manga part of the tour to go. So what I will do is I will do the manga tour as I reshelve my manga collection in the new apartment. So probably do that either at the very end of July or sometime early in August, like the 1st or 2nd of August. And I will then upload that video once it's done. And I'll try to do like the entire manga collection in one video. And hopefully have a drink available so I'm not having a frog in my throat or whatever that is that I had like last week when I was doing, I think it was the a book haul, where I started having like my throat started to bother me. And of course also earlier today in at the end of the history tour, I was starting to get thirsty. So yeah, hopefully I'll take care of that, otherwise it might be somewhat uncomfortable. because the last time I did this kind of tour for my manga collection, it was a long video. I think it was over an hour long. So hopefully that doesn't bite me in the rear end, but we shall see. But since I'm not going to have any more tour videos, I'm going to be doing some other videos over the course of this coming week. I'm going to try to be doing some more tags because I have been neglecting tags the last few weeks, and also try to do some more discussion videos and hope they can work out. And also probably give you some updates about where the packing has been and some plans I have for my new library. So until I see you next week, BookTube, thank you. Have a great weekend, and until I see you on Monday, stay safe.